Platemark is a podcast about prints and the printmaking ecosystem. In every episode, we'll hear from folks who occupy various roles in that ecosystem. I'm your host, Ann Schaefer. I work to promote prints and printmaking through this podcast, through organizing fine art print fairs, and also through organizing exhibitions. The goal of the pod is to demystify the world of prints and printmaking, which can be technically challenging, and to demonstrate the range of opportunities to work in this charming corner of the art world. This is a show that takes you behind the scenes to expose the generous, collaborative, and creative people working to better the world one print at a time. My guest today is artist Yashua Klos. I've been watching Yashua's career for a long time now, I think since 2005 or so, and I have just always wanted to talk to him about his work, which really has to do with identity, but I think he does it in a really wonderful and smart way. We really get into it. We get into family, we get into creativity, we get into collaboration and working alone. We talk about painting and the false hierarchy of commercial art. It's a wide-ranging conversation, but I think it's super helpful. So I hope you enjoy it. Okay, housekeeping. I identify as a cishet white woman, and I use the pronouns she, her. I record Platemark in Baltimore, Maryland, the land of the Piscataway Conoy people. Images that Yashua and I talk about are over in the show notes at platemarkpodcast.com. Over there you can also do a bunch of stuff, including hit the very important support and donate button and help me keep the lights on. All right, let's get rolling. Yashua, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for coming on Platemark.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Ann. This is super exciting.
Yeah, I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time, and I think I hear you are a new discoverer of Platemark, and hopefully you are in it and willing to be on it.
Oh, man. I mean, I wish somebody had told me earlier that there was a podcast dedicated to printmaking. I would have already caught up with all the episodes by now, so I'm definitely doing my backlog of research. So thank you for doing this.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's getting to be kind of a long list. So thank you for jumping in. I think the first place I want to start is you've recently done some collaborative printmaking with some of our favorite people at Wingate Studios, which is outside of your usual practice. And I love that relationship between artist and collaborative printer people, and I just hope you do too, and tell us about your experience there.
Yeah, so Wingate is an incredible, amazing experience. And maybe, Ann, should I unpack some kind of context around my printmaking practice so that I can just kind of delineate the difference between what I do and what I did there?
Yeah, it's true, because this is such a sidestep for you. It's great.
Yeah, so for those who are not as familiar with my work, I'm making collages that are based in woodblock print. So I'm carving, inking, printing blocks, and then the prints that I make from those blocks become source material for the collages. So in a way, it's really kind of a backwards way of printmaking, because I'm not resolving the final results and the final image from the outset. I'm finding it through the mess that I make, through all of the prints that I come up with. I'm cutting, reassembling them into one image, one of one collage. So in that way, it's very different than traditional printmaking.
So when you're making all of these elements, the pile of elements is not for one work. You just have a pile of elements for whatever you're working on, then they go wherever.
So, well, it's a little of both. So I'm constantly making these elements while I'm working on a piece. And then I also have an archive where I'm storing, past textures and colors that I've rolled out and printed. And that's the beauty of printmaking, obviously, is that you can make multiples. So if, let's say I know that I need an ear for a portrait I'm working on, and the ear is on a certain angle, well, when I carve and print that ear image, I'll print it 5 times because I know I only need, one good one. And the other 4 will go in the archive that I can bring out later and collage into another piece.
Got it.
So I'm making a mess. I'm making a ton of material that I can figure out how to circulate back into the practice when it's needed. And there's times where I'm working on an image on the wall and it will tell me that I need a new carving, and I'll have to carve that out just for that specific purpose. And again, when I'm doing so, not only am I using it in real time on that piece in front of me, but I'm going to make multiples, save them for later in case the need arises for those in the future.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So very, very different from doing copper plate etching, which is what Wingate specializes in. And in particular, they like to do 5 and 6 plates of copper plate. So even amongst etchers, that is a very lengthy and challenging process. And they love it, I think, because of the complexity and nuance that you can get in all the layers and colors when you do 6 copper plates lined up that way. So totally new to me, but they were great at just guiding me through the process. They wanted to retain my woodblock line, so that carving gouge gesture, they wanted to retain that gesture. And that's exactly what they did, was put a brush in my hand, show me, how to repeat the marks that I was making through my woodblock prints. And then just kind of like with a lot of faith in their expertise, I relied on them to know how each of those plates was going to be layered up to create the resulting image.
So when it comes to separating a multi-layered image into 6 strata,
yeah,
I that still to me is like, I don't understand. It does not compute, And
yeah.
And did you have a hand in that, or did they sort of say, go away and sit by the fire for a minute?
That's when I sat by the fire. Exactly. And I was so grateful for that fire, because it was like, the middle of winter in New Hampshire. So Wingate's beautiful. It's in a small little cabin. It's a full print shop. It's cozy. They've got a wood burning fire there. And those are times where I would take breaks, because they were clearly the smarter ones on the process. I did come to the table with 3 images, actually 2 images that I had made from past works. So I took past collages of mine, one collages, and then I sort of broke those down into line work that I thought could translate better into the etching process. And then again, because it was snow, there was literally like 2 feet of snow outside the door and nothing to do up there in New Hampshire where we were except make art. I did a 3rd print, and we did, there were like 14-hour days in there. It was wild, but it was beautiful. It felt like being back in school when you can just kind of lock in and commit to working on something before finals, before a deadline, before a critique, because we knew that, our time was limited. They, of course, they're popular, so they had another artist on their way there to do their prints. So I had to make great use of the time there, and I think we pulled it off. We came up with 3 pretty incredible prints that I would have had no idea how to make on my own without them.
Do you have any sense of how the sales have been? Because I feel like there's a lot of us who've been watching, and probably if I were still in an institution, probably would have had the budget, not for one of the unique prints, or works, collages. But if I saw a multiple come out of Wingate, I would have snapped one up in a second.
Yeah, well, thanks for saying that. I mean, I agree. I think there has been some good attention, and some of the works have been placed at the Zuckerman Museum. There's been a couple other institutions as well. I don't know if it's 100% confirmed, so I won't say the names of them, but Jordan Schnitzer he bought a work from another collaboration at Neiman Center, which we can also talk about. But, I'm happy with all those prints. And yeah, to your point, it's a great way for me to get to making work that are a little bit more accessible with a lower price point than those original works.
Right. The other thing that just struck me is, as you were talking, I remember touring the Pace Editions print shop at some point, and they were assembling, I think it was a Nicola Lopez edition work that was multi-collage pieces, things standing up, proud and everything. And there probably are ways to make a longer, bigger edition of some of your collage elements.
Oh, there are for sure. And again, like I feel as though, even though printmaking is such a integral part of my process, I do feel like a newbie to the printmaking community in a lot of ways because most of the work that I make is in my studio without the resource of a print shop. So I'm learning through going to the IFPDAs, the print fairs, and making relationships with some of these print houses, like all the possibilities that involve textures and layers and, thinking about printmaking less as ink on paper and thinking about it more as a way to make multiples of a thing. I mean, what I'm seeing is there are artists who are making things that are almost sculptural objects, and they're working with a print shop in order to figure out the best route to reproduce that object in multiples.
Yeah, Graphic Studio does that. I think they edition Roy Lichtenstein chairs, if I'm not mistaken.
There you go.
Yes, people are going all over the place with this. It's awesome. It's fun to watch, really.
It's fun to watch, and I think for the print shops, it's fun for them because these are new challenges. They're really problem-solving experts. You kind of give them a puzzle, a finished puzzle, and then they go, "All right, let me deconstruct it and put it back together again."
Yeah, I love talking to artists, obviously, because you're the nexus of the whole enterprise, but I love talking to the printers too. And I think 99.9% of them have said, well, we always say yes, and then we head to the back room and go, how in the world are we going to do this?
That's right. I came across that attitude a lot with Wingate. They were like, yeah, we can do that. Let's do it.
That sounds like Leo.
That was Leo, 100%. Yeah, Leo was just like, he was like, we're going to figure this out. And I think even at one point, Leo said, he said, we're kind of in the service industry if you think about it. You know what I mean? Like as a printmaker, they're translating an artist's ideas and our concerns and our passion, our materials into something else, but they're doing it in a way that the artist can co-sign. I mean, that takes a lot of patience, flexibility, and talent.
It's a long game for sure, because editioning a complicated 6-plate etching or 3, I'm sure that Leo's been busting it, but yeah, it takes a long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how did it go over at the Neiman Center?
Oh man, Neiman Center is incredible. Neiman Center is, of course, connected to Columbia College, and they have such great resources there. When I first walked in, my mind was spinning on like all the techniques and processes they have. They have huge print beds and all kinds of techniques I've never seen. But we figured out something there that uses woodblock printing, but almost in a collage fashion, so that there are, and by collage fashion, I mean there are raised areas that are also relief, so they're carved into them. And I carved into several sheets of linoleum and wood, and we kind of puzzle pieced those together to create layers for a woodblock print, which was really, really exciting and interesting. And they gave me a lot of good guidance and feedback around color. And I think what I came out with was like really exceptional print in my process. I've never used color in that way. And I think similar to Wingate, like when I was there, I tried out a purple, which I would have probably not tried on my own, but it just made sense in the printmaking language. It's funny how like a process itself can open up room for other technical things, just as simple as, using purple.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's funny. I love how you talk about the mess you make in your studio and you no offense painters, but you sound like a painter in a lot of ways, right? Because you're working alone and all that. And I feel like we're going to draw you out and you're going to, jump into the collaboration world and just be like a kid in a, candy store.
Oh, I love it because it kind of puts me back in the position of really learning, and also, I don't have to be the one that's completely behind the wheel. Like to your point, when there's a part of the process that I don't completely understand, I can go sit by the fire and let the adults work it out. And something there's something that's really freeing about that. And yes, I do feel like a paint. I actually describe my studio as being like a painter's palette because the floor is often covered with all of these scraps of woodblock print textures and colors, and I need to see them so I know what's available, the same way that a painter needs to have a palette in front of them with all of their color options. So in that way, I do often feel like I'm painting with woodblock prints.
Right. I mean, I know you're composing as you go, but do you have a sketchbook practice at all?
I do have a sketchbook practice. Drawing was my first love. I was a kid who really liked comic books, comic book characters, and just an illustration. All of those things were kind of like just fine art to me. I didn't really see a separation. When I got a chance to finally go to a museum and see paintings, I was still sort of comparing the fidelity of those paintings and their anatomy to what I had seen done in comic books. So to me, they were always the same kind of language. It was just, a visual language that was about technique and storytelling, narrative, character development. I found the same thing. And so drawing for me was my way of entering into the art world. And of course, I tried painting as I went through school. You have to take it. And I was always excited about the end product of the painting, not the process. I loved the way the paintings looked, but I sweated it out to get to that final stage of going, aha. So I thought when I found woodblock print, I was like, well, this takes me back to process where I'm really, instead of drawing the line, I'm removing the line with that carving gouge. And the graphic nature of it, for me, just brought me right back to the primary bones of building an image.
Oh, interesting. Huh. That's fascinating because wow. I don't even know where to go with that. That's amazing to me. I feel like you somehow are intuitive enough with your creativity that you're not worrying about what the gouge is necessarily doing, and you're really using it like a sketchbook or a paintbrush or something in a way that a lot of people are too afraid to somehow,
Well, I took the pressure off of myself by not having to pull a perfect print, through my process. So it allowed me to be a little more sketchy, to your point, and to draw more with the gouge, because I know that I can print this image several times and I can take the best parts of 5 prints and combine them together to get one good image. That's also kind of how I arrived at the collage, because I was doing it from my home studio at the time, and I knew that I wasn't as good at pulling that perfect print or resolving that image in advance. That was okay if I could do several prints and then take the best parts from each of those prints to combine into something that was, just the best parts of those.
Do you remember the first time you tried print making?
Oh, yeah.
Most people do.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So I learned printmaking from Dennis McNett.
Oh.
And Dennis McNett, I see you're familiar with Dennis. He's, I think Wolfbat Prints was his thing.
Well, I'm interviewing him in a week or two.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can't wait to hear that interview. Dennis invited me. I did a year of grad school at Pratt before I transferred to Hunter. And Dennis just invited me to his class. I wasn't enrolled in it, but he said, come to the class, I think you'll like it. And he gave his students 8-foot by 4-foot blocks of MDF, which I still use to this day. And we would carve these blocks for the semester. And at the end of the semester, he hired a steamroller to drive over the blocks, right? So that was like spectacular. It was like we're having a block party. We would ink up each other's blocks, and it was this kind of fun party and communal activity. And, then you got the spectacle of seeing this steamroller drive over your art. So I was completely smitten by the process at that moment, but I was also like, I don't have anywhere to fit a steamroller. So I may have to modify this one. And out came the wooden kitchen spoons and the brayers, and I was printing by hand. And by printing by hand, of course, I figured out another way to vary my prints where I could put more pressure in one area, less pressure in another. I could ink up different densities of ink in different areas. So I was giving myself all these different, ways of creating variation so I could figure out later what to do with all this variation and how to compose it. So
You
big
kind
shout
of
out to
are
Dennis.
you're like a painter at heart, really,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah, in a way. I think in a way it's like painting and of course drawing,
Yeah.
I'm a fan. Of course I'm a fan of, some legendary collage artist, Romare Bearden. I mean, now there are so many brilliant people working in collage. But to be honest, I don't really think about collage in my studio. I think like a sculptor. I think like I'm building three-dimensional space, but I'm doing it with 2D materials. So, and the prints are the first part of, well, drawing is the first part of the process in carving the print. The print making is sort of the second part of the process in creating all the source material. And then I'm sort of sculpting, and then maybe I would say the final layer is kind of like painting in that I'm addressing color issues, I'm balancing contrast, foreground, background, those kind of things.
So there's hand applied color at the end. Those areas like the red and the flower behind you is all
Yep.
hand done. Okay.
So some of that, some of it is hand, some of it is printed, some of that is me taking the brush and painting with the same relief block ink.
Okay. But you also use both fabric and paper, and tell me why.
So that's another one that I learned from Dennis McNett. I think that we were laying canvas on top of our blocks because the canvas could hold up to the steamroller. So that made sense just practically, and also the scale made sense because, again, those blocks were 8 feet by 4 feet, and it's very hard and expensive to get, a rice paper at that scale.
Right.
I think what I found is that muslin absorbs the ink even better than canvas. It still gives you the ability to roll it for storage, to hang it, so you can avoid tearing and wrinkling rice paper with muslin. Is also pretty inexpensive comparative.
Well, that's usually the answer, right? There's a great quote somewhere in time. I can't remember where I saw it, but Jim Dine was asked about his early black paintings.
Yep.
And they kept saying, "Well, why the black? Why the black?" And he said, "Well, because the black paint was on sale."
Right. Right. Yeah. Sometimes it's dictated by budget.
Right. Exactly.
And then it works. And then you're like, I'm not changing now.
Right. I remember seeing a steamroller demonstration at, I think it was SGCI in Madison, the only SGCI I've ever been to. If you've never been to one of those, you think about going sometime. So there's two printmaking consortium groups that do conferences every year. Southern Graphics International is SGCI, and that's the one I went to. And then this year, I also went to the second one, which is the MAPC, the Mid-America Print Council meeting. SGCI is larger, more people. Mid-America is smaller, but it draws mostly the academic professors and a lot of the students and a lot of people who are just, getting out of grad school and stuff. But boy, there's no better way to meet the people who are making like you are,
That's right.
It's really fun. I had such a blast with them. Anyway, I don't know why I went there.
It really is a printmaking community. It's a network, right?
Yeah, I always say, I don't think the painting people have a conference like this.
Good point.
Right? Yeah. The print people always clump together, I think, because we're always feeling like the underdogs and, give us some sunshine, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's that. I think it's also because we kind of rely upon each other to make some of these projects happen. Again, like I couldn't have done what I did with Wingate or Neiman Center without somebody who's invested, all those years and hours of expertise.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, the reason I brought up SGCI was they were doing a steamroller demo out at Tandem Press, and which is also another fabulous shop you should go visit and do some work with. And
Absolutely.
they rolled over the students' big, huge block that they had worked on together. And I forget which school it was. I'm sorry, guys. But the steamroller it wasn't enough pressure. And so they brought it inside to their giant, press and had to do it in the conventional manner because the steamroller just wasn't enough, which seemed crazy to me. But I'm sure that the fabric helped because it must be more absorbent, softer, more pliable, all that stuff. I think. I'm no printmaker, so I don't know.
Yeah, this is why I love muslin. I mean, canvas isn't as porous as the muslin, it's thicker. It's just a different quality of print. But again, when you're printing by hand, you do want a kind of a thin substrate so that you can, for me, it helps to like see the print come through. Now I'm getting really technical here, but I think this is the right audience for that.
That's right.
So printing by hand, I appreciate having very thin substrates because while you're applying pressure to the back of the paper, the rice paper or the muslin, you can see the print, you can see the ink start to come through. And I like to see that. And that way I know how much pressure will result in, how much density of ink and if I need to let up or apply more pressure. So for me, the thinner substrate is better for that kind of hand printing.
It's like, I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep coming back to painting, but it's like you're doing painterly printing because most people I know, even if they're doing big blocks and they're using the Baren, they're trying to get an even printing all the way across, no variation, tight wipe, the whole 9 yards. It's so fascinating.
I had a teacher, and I'll say her name because we're great friends now. I had a teacher in MFA who told me day one, Lisa Davis, tell me day one, I hate printmaking. It's going to be very hard for you to convince me otherwise. This is what she said, my first day of class. And, you just felt like the tension, like other students kind of like backed up against them. They were like, this is going to be a wild ride. But we hit it off because I understood what her trepidation was about printmaking, I think, in an MFA context. I think what she was feeling was that often printmaking, when we put it up on the wall and talk about it, the conversation always starts and stops around the technique. I was also aware of that, but interested in, can I find a way to make printmaking as a technique valuable to a larger conversation so that it made sense that it was printed and how it was made, but that it went further than that and was about other things. So it's funny. She and I laugh about it now because I think it could have been really intimidating, but it's kind of true that, I've always been searching for a way to like transcend material. I think that's the case, no matter what I'm making, I'm trying to find a way that the audience doesn't stay stuck on technique, even though I want things to be about technique and well made as well.
I talk to people all the time and I'm always dissing on the painters, and somebody the other day I was talking to said, well, I think painting is just as complicated as printmaking. I'm like, no. I'm calling shenanigans on that one.
Debatable. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, you probably could labor over painting in the same manner, but I've always maintained that there's something about printmaking specifically, if you're doing a sort of traditional route through the whole thing, that you have to slow down. You have to figure out what you're doing first, and then you got to do it step by step, and it gives you time to think and change your mind and really consider and mean it. You have to mean what you're doing, right? Because it's a lot of,
good point.
You're investing so much into it,
No, that's true. Yeah, there's a commitment for sure.
Yeah.
We can't wipe away, layer on top. It's just not forgiving in that way.
I mean, you can do a little, but not, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not like painting. Off it goes.
Right.
But I'm really curious about the Art Deco patterning that I'm seeing behind you that sounds like it's in relief somehow, that you're building up something. Well, how are you doing that?
Yeah, Good eye. Yeah, those
I've been reading.
that's right. That's right. So those are abstracted Art Deco floral patterns there in the background. That comes into my work quite a bit as a reference to location in the Midwest and specifically Detroit, where much of my family is. That's happening materially through balsa wood that I'm cutting, attaching to the surface of the canvas, and then wrapping the rice paper over that. So the rice paper becomes this skin that's wrapped over the wood, so it's kind of hidden. When people see these in a studio or at shows, they often think that there's an embossing from the back, but it's not.
Okay.
It's additive to the surface.
You could make those out of paper pulp, just saying.
Oh, I know. I've considered for sure.
We have a lot of ideas for you.
That's right. No, but this is what's great about these conversations. Like I've had that whispered in my ear a few times from printmakers who are like, "Have you thought about making your own paper?
Go
You could
talk
do
to
that."
Dudonay, exactly.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So I think to your point that you made just a couple of seconds ago, we should talk about content and leave the technical because, I could geek out on technique all day.
Oh no, yeah, I'm happy to talk about anything that you want to.
Oh, you're
And
sweet. The images you're doing at this moment, which are usually figurative at the base, often pieces and parts of people, hands, or just faces, except for in the larger mural work, which we'll get to. And there's always things sort of bursting out. It's all a bit cacophonous and chaotic, which I think there's conceptual rigor behind. I'm pretty sure. And of course, we have to bring your family story into this because it's so fascinating and obviously changed everything for you. So I don't know where you want to start.
Sure. Well, I love the use of the word cacophonous. I don't think anyone's ever described my work with that word, but
Ah.
I love that.
Sweet.
Yeah, the work is well, it's often about the ways that I see myself, the people around me, my friends, my family, kind of constructing and composing our identities to face the world. My story is that I didn't grow up with my father in my life, and that as actually plays a part in a lot of the work, as I've come to understand just through years of making the work. I met him 2 times. He took me on a road trip to Detroit, Michigan when I was 7 years old. And that's where I met that whole side of my family. My father was one of 15 kids. And it's a huge family. So I had this like amazing experience. It felt like I was just thrown into a family reunion, right? And I had this amazing, and I was like, he dropped me off back in Chicago, where I'm from, I was like, I went through years of wondering, like, did that even really happen? Because I had no connection to him or to that side of my family again. So it was this weird sort of, where is my family? Where am I in that family? And a lot of my work, I think, was kind of motivated by a desire to understand my identity through my family and my separation from them. So a lot of the images were these constructed memories of family members that I had met and also friends of my mom's who were like aunts to me and like cousins to me growing up. And the kind of way that I guess as a only child of a single parent mom, I kind of sourced my idea of family from neighbors and community and friends mainly, while still having this sort of longing for a biological family, which I wasn't as connected to. So that's at the sort of core of my impetus for making a lot of these images. I'm also using a lot of carved wood grain. So I'll take a block of MDF wood, carve a false wood grain, and then ink and print that. Those wood grain prints is what I'm building these faces with. And my father was a builder and he was in construction. He taught his brothers, my uncles, how to do construction and drywall and carpentry, which they still do to this day. And a lot of that work that I'm doing is about him not teaching me those things. But yeah, I think a lot of the work is about kind of being disconnected from what would have been taught to me through my relationship with my father, but finding a way to, represent that wood and that building material kind of, through my own interest as an artist.
But Yashua, sorry, I mispronounce your name every time I see your name. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Yeshua.
People say Yashua a lot, and I don't even hear the difference anymore.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
So and tell me if I'm getting too personal, but you were aware at 7 that this was your father and that was the family.
Right.
And when you got home, Mom said, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, well, it wasn't, they weren't together. I mean,
clearly.
It just wasn't, it definitely wasn't a conversation that she was open to having.
Because every article and every interview has this narrative about your father not being present and your mom, single mom, et cetera, et cetera. You didn't try and find them, and it wasn't until a DNA test somehow popped up.
Yeah, so I should say that, for me, my situation wasn't that different from other people that I grew up with in my neighborhood and school. So a lot of my friends also were raised by their mothers and their fathers weren't present. And because of that, I didn't necessarily feel that my family structure was any different.
Sure, it's what you know because you grew up with it, right? Right, sure.
Yeah, so, and there were times, especially in high school, when I started to ask my mom about my dad and how to get connected. And she made some probably half-hearted attempts to track them down. She was not interested in her being connected to my father anymore. They just didn't have a good relationship. So I think there was also intentional distance, right?
She was probably trying to protect you.
100%, absolutely. And at the time, as a kid, you don't really understand that, but as an adult, now I'm so grateful for all the work and labor that she had to do to raise me on her own. And my ideas of family are what I've learned from her, that her friends, she had, of course, a crew of women who also were single parent moms who had boys. They all had one boy, and they all crewed up, and one weekend my mom would take care of the 3 boys or 4 boys, and another weekend she would get a break and another mom would take care of us. So they really figured out a system of relying upon each other as community and a sisterhood, which is really, really beautiful. And that's how I learned to build family as a young person. And I'm so grateful for that, because by the time I had gotten contact with my father's side of the family, which was only 5 years ago, I had already, a very solid sense of self and of my friends and family. But it's been so beautiful to meet them, because unbeknownst to me, they were completely arms open, welcoming me into the fold of the family. I had not anticipated that. I think I just figured that because of the distance, that was distance that they had wanted too. And when I reconnected with them, they were asking me, like, where have you been? Why didn't you try to, reach us? And they made it very clear that we're not going to miss each other or lose any more time.
Sure.
So
how old were you when your dad died?
Well, when I got reconnected with my family just in 2019, February, he had passed away already. So he had passed away, I think, in 2008 or 9 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is your mom still kicking?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She is. And, the whole experience, I think in some ways has been intimidating for her because, again, this is like a large family. There were a lot of fun. There's a lot of parties. It's a lot of good food. And I'm in Detroit 5 times a year now. It's also drawn her and I together closer because I have realized also a lot of the sacrifice and work that she had to do in order to raise me on her own. So I'm super grateful for her more now than ever.
Yes, you're a nice boy. I like to think. I mean, well, yesterday was Mother's Day as we were recording this, everybody.
Yes.
So it's all it's on all our minds. My kids, like I had to call them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm sure you called your mom.
A lot of moms are like that. Yeah, I did. I did call my mom. Yeah, I
Um,
sent her a back massager too.
oh, nice.
That's pretty good, right?
That is good.
Yeah,
We have it's a Hallmark holiday. Why should I let them tell me when to say I love
yeah,
you?
yeah,
It's very sort of, New Englandy, ugh, but
yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
better or worse. But the whole thing about finding family, I mean, they sound remarkable and remarkably welcoming. So many people have discovered family in this aftermath of 23andMe and Ancestry or
That's
whatever.
right. That's right.
Is kind of insane. But yours is like, I love how wholeheartedly you've been accepted and how much it has affected. I mean, it's really come absolutely through in your work. I mean, it is you. It's totally you now. They are you.
Yeah. No, and I have to say that it's like my work has blossomed because I have blossomed. When I found my family, it was literally as if I hit the lottery and somebody had, and I hadn't remembered playing a ticket, you know. Yes, I did ancestry.com, but I did it because I just wanted to get the geographic breakdown of where to trace my roots through from my dad's side, who is Black, African American. So, you know, like most Black folks in America who can trace their lineage, you know, there's obviously the disruption through the transatlantic slave trade. I just didn't know which countries in Africa that I was connected to. So that's why I did it. My mom is white, Eastern. I knew I would have the Eastern European genealogy in there, and I just wanted to, you know, connect to those, find out which were those African countries. So I got the readout. They give you like a percentages, and it was nothing was surprising, but I got the regions, and I didn't think about it for like 2 years, and then I got a Facebook message saying, "Hey, we did on this side of the family, we did a DNA test, and we think you might be a match," and that just led to this connection. So it is like hitting the lottery, but I just didn't, you know, I didn't play the ticket. I didn't know that I was in the running to win, and I also didn't. I wouldn't have expected again that my family was as interested in me as I would be in them, and that has been like a complete blessing.
Yeah. Yeah, having open arms must be, I mean, it makes me want to cry just thinking about what that scene must have been like for you to walk into, 30 first cousins and
Oh my God, I remember it like it was yesterday. I mean, yeah, it was extremely emotional. I mean, one of the first persons I hugged was my sister, who, you know, I knew my father had other children, but I didn't know where they were or how to get in touch with them and how many there were. My brother and sister and all these aunts, uncles, and cousins. And I mean, that's what that mural piece is about. You know, that 40-foot by 17-foot mural based on the Diego Detroit Industry mural, that is about a family reunion that I had to compose, you know, in order to make sense of this large family tree and my place in it. So it was kind of a way for me to make up for some lost time because I was seeing on Facebook all of these parties, birthday parties and family reunions that I had missed throughout the years. And I also, being an only child with such a small family on my mother's side, I couldn't quite wrap my mind around the fact that like overnight someone's calling me an uncle, someone's calling me a nephew, someone's calling me a brother, like, and this was overnight. So that mural was a way for me to create a family tree and kind of get a handle on looking at all of these faces and understanding this is my family.
but the conceptual rigor goes farther than that because you're linking it to labor, American labor, specifically Black American labor. And
Yep.
yeah, and I think it was a really clever way to do it, to have, I mean, if you didn't know your family members, they could be a general population of Black labor, right? But then the extra added layer of, no, that's my auntie and my blah, blah, blah. It was a great melding of your story to date, really.
Yeah, that was one of the things about that mural that was also really compelling to me was I had saw Diego Rivera's Detroit Industry mural on a side trip when I was visiting family in Detroit. Of course, as an art nerd, I had to go and make my
Gotta do
museum trip.
it.
I had to do it.
Yeah.
So I ran off and saw that mural in the museum, and I was blown away, And it's just stunning, and it also is so powerful because we consume stories about history and all these narratives about how things were built and who was behind them through art, right? And this mural was this really definitive project about the identity of Detroit, and therefore, the Midwest and the American economy at the time was really built around the automobile, 1930s, early 1930s. And there were very few Black people in the mural. There was a couple that Diego sprinkled in, and that was actually a very progressive act of him at the time.
Wasn't he in trouble for it, or was it that one? No, it was one at Rockefeller Center. Never mind.
You think, yeah, Rockefeller Center. I think he had Stalin.
Yeah.
Went a little too far
Right.
with the communism. But I was just kind of stunned by the mural, but then also reflecting on, I was like, Detroit is such a Black city. Like, in the city I'm from, Chicago, is such a Black city.
Baltimore.
It's Baltimore, another one.
Yeah.
And DC, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you think about all of the labor that Black folks have put in and poured into those cities, and then to be left out of the telling of that story is an injustice. And this is a time where representation becomes personal and political for me, right? It's just that serious. So I was like, I have cousins actually that still work in different auto factories in Detroit to this day. And of course, the Detroit economy is much of it's still based around the auto plant. So I had to find a way to get them involved. And that was a way for me to solve a few problems, personal ones, and then the one of representation as well, was by using their portraits in place of the faceless white male workers that Diego depicted in his Detroit Industry mural.
Right. Yes, I agree with you. Representation absolutely matters. And I feel like it would be really great if artists didn't feel compelled to do work about identity, but you guys say it so much better than other people and in a better way, in a more accessible way. Like, it's so important.
Of course, we've come to a place in time where there's always been, in America, Black artists making work that was about representation. And we kind of hit a moment post George Floyd where it seemed as though America was making some strides to reckon with the absence of that kind of representation of Black contributions to America and to art history, with just the presence of the Black figure. And it's strange because now it almost feels like the art world is kind of going, hey, we did our part, that was 2 years of patronage there for all the Black figuration. And
it feels like longer than that. When I was still at the museum, we were all just trying to fill in the gaps,
Right. When would you say that it kind of petered off, though?
Oh, I've been watching that closely. Yeah, it does feel like it's waning. I feel like that there's been a shift to Native American artists and Latin artists, and of course, everybody should be in the mix, right? So
yeah,
but
we
everyone's
got a lot of work to do,
playing catch up.
100%.
Yeah,
100%. So I'm excited about a practice that continues to discuss that resilience refuses to be invisibilized and forgotten. And the current work that I'm doing now is also butting against the sort of marginalization in the art world of the Black figure, where now the figure is sort of resisting the pull to marginalize it or hide it, or maybe even hide it in abstraction. But there's always a way that you can see the figure climbing forward. Because again, this is about a sort of obvious mode of representation that I'm really taken by. The idea that the figure itself poses so much beauty, power, and threat. I think that it's so loaded, and again, it becomes personal and political all at once.
Well, yeah, and I feel like in answer to that, elementary school question, why do artists always paint the figure?
Mm,
It's because that's who we are, right? Like this is the most easily one-to-one relatable moment is looking at a figure and finding yourself in it, right?
right.
And landscapes and everything else are beautiful, but nothing carries quite so much potency, I think, as the
Right.
figure. Yeah.
It seems like we're often trying to describe our worldly experience in the first person, by saying like, this is me talking and this is you I'm talking to and this is who we are. It seems like we have been just describing our world through that kind of narration.
Well, and I have come lately to believe, having discovered recently that I have a narcissist in my family.
Oh,
And part of that whole shtick is that nobody can get through. You can't connect, right? To me, human connection is it's like the reason we're here. Like if you don't connect with people, you got not a lot.
right.
Yeah. And for me, art can be that conversation starter. Like I love looking at art with people and just saying, what do you see? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, did you notice this?
Right.
Let's start in that corner.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And to that point, I'm often making art in consideration of an audience that isn't interested in chiseling through abstraction. And let me say that another way. I'm often making art aware that my audience wants to see themselves in the work.
Okay. That's fair.
And this goes back to meeting my family. I was overjoyed that they wanted to participate in being in my art. That for me, there's nothing better for an artist, right? I could have had an experience where, meeting family and they were like, that's fine, but not interested. But my family is not like that. They were so excited whenever I would reach out for requests for photos. I had aunts. I did a show in Paris. I had, I think, 3-4 aunts come out to that. A couple cousins came out to Paris for the first time and hang out and come to the show. I did a residency in New Orleans, had 7 aunts and uncles and cousins come to New Orleans for a few days and hang out. Now, it wasn't just for me. It was also for New Orleans.
Yeah, but imagine never having been to Paris before and you're going because your nephew is having a big ass show. Like it doesn't get any more exciting than that, I think.
No, I'm just so honored that
cool.
they care.
Yeah.
I'm just so honored that they care and that they see themselves in the work. That's just so important to me.
Right. Oh, so sweet. Oh, I love them.
I know have you had such an emotional episode yet?
I've gotten in it with people sometimes, I must say, but yeah, no, I feel like you wear your heart in your art. And I like that. I really love that about you.
Thank you. Thanks for seeing that. I have been asked that question. People have asked me, is it hard to be this vulnerable? Like you're revealing a lot through your work. It's about your upbringing, your identity. And the thing is, I think artists don't really have a choice. We are doing this because we're compelled to. There's nothing more important. It's not as though I would, for me, withhold and do something else in my work. For what purpose? This is what I'm here to do. This is my purpose, is to share my human story while I'm still here.
Yeah. Yeah. Before I let you go, I wanted to bring up Charles White.
Oh, yes. The GOAT.
The GOAT. At the Baltimore Museum, where I was hosting classes all the time, the curator ahead of me, Susan Dackerman, brought into the collection a linoleum cut by Charles White of Harry Belafonte. Wow. And in it, he's singing, right? And it's called The Voice of Jericho. I'm not a big fan of titles adding, like, I don't want them to be dependent, on the title. Anyway, that's another story. Voice of Jericho. So he's singing. And when I went to the show at the Met, at MoMA, was that Esther Adler's show? I think it was. Did you see that show? I'm sure you did.
The Charles White show at the MoMA? Yes.
Yeah. So she had also borrowed from Harry Belafonte the larger painted portrait.
Painting. I've seen the painting.
The painting, right? And next to it at MoMA was a drawing of the same, but a sort of more bust length thing.
Right.
And the linoleum cut was at one of the other venues, but hadn't been loaned to MoMA, which was, I thought, too bad. Because for me, the linoleum cut, and I'll send you an image and put it in the show notes, captured something that was elusive in the others, which is that it was him, and it was a very tall, narrow thing. And there was a lot of space above his head that was swirling in cuts.
Right.
And so his voice had this physicality.
That's right.
That was hair-raising.
That's right.
And then when they found that video of him singing that song, and every time he went up for a high note, his neck would strain, and it was just what Charles White had captured, and I was like crying watching that. Yeah. It was just chills. Oh.
And I know exactly what you mean. And to me, that is the genius of Charles White, and also the charm of linoleum cut as a technique. Because some of that, that gesture, that line, noise, you can leave in there to insinuate, motion or energy or framing. I mean, it's so good for that. And Charles White is the reason. Charles White and Elizabeth Catlett are the reason why I started exploring linoleum cut seriously, because of the imagery that they made, the power of representation, and the technique is just impeccable.
Yeah, it seems like such a simple thing to carve away, some piece of the background, but he was so intentional about it.
That's right.
It added to the whole thing. Oh, so good.
Yeah. You're not the only one who prefers the Charles White woodcuts and linoleum to the paintings. I mean, I'm right there with you. I saw that show at the MoMA. I saw it first at the Art Institute of Chicago. Of course, I went back home to see it. That's where it started. A long overdue retrospective of a great artist. And I saw the paintings and thought, yeah, I'm glad he went there and experimented there. But to me, the strength of Charles White is in those linoleum and woodcuts.
Yeah. But it's interesting, too, because I think he probably didn't rise to the top. Maybe because he's Black, and that's a whole other hierarchy, right? But there's also that he could have been considered more illustrative, right? Mm-hmm, but to your point that you made really early on in our conversation about the comic books and not having seen any difference between those and the paintings, it's all a false hierarchy, all of it.
Right.
I mean, we layer this stupid stuff on top of it all, and good storytelling through great pictures is all that matters.
That's right. No, solid point. Absolutely. 100%, full stop. I have nothing to say about that.
Sorry, I just took over your interview.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I think, I have really enjoyed talking to you, because I feel like I'm just right there with you on all of your thinking and the way you maneuver through. It's been fascinating talking to you.
Well, thank you. It's been fascinating talking to you too. And this is again, like, why I think, the joy of making the work that I make and using printmaking is because printmaking is, to your point, often relegated as, one of the lesser of the fine arts somehow. But, we're now seeing ways that printmaking is used at the highest parts of the fine art world. And I'm really excited about all of that and all of the motion that I'm seeing around prints, not just in the print economy, though that's also bustling now, but just conceptually, like prints are blowing my mind. The work that the Black women of print are doing, Tanikia Word and Stephanie Santana, LaToya Hobbs. There's just so many printmakers that are doing like interesting conceptual work now that is right on the cutting edge of all of the contemporary art conversations.
And as much as I want prints to stand on their own and rise to the top, because you're pulling it into the realm of unique works and, dare I say, painting, that I feel like you're kind of like the crashing crest of the wave. You're right on the edge. You're right on the front.
Wow. I'll take that as a compliment.
Well
Thank
done.
you so much, Anne.
Well, you are. I mean, the prints are completely integral and crucial to the work, right? But it's so much more, and so much more layered and nuanced and all that good stuff. So,
absolutely,
nicely done.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here to be able to talk about this with you and with the whole printmaking community. Looking forward to getting out there and doing more collaborations with print shops and just continuing to learn more. That's so much.
Well, be careful. If you're open to collaborations, you're going to have people knocking at your door. Come make prints with us. It's going to be great. All right. Well, we should sign off, and hopefully we'll get a chance to do this again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to it. Thanks so much for having me, Anne. This has been a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of Platemark with my guest, Yashua Klos. I loved our convo. I thought we got into some really cool and interesting places with his work and with his life, and I hope you got something out of it. I sure did. Thank you to him for being a great guest. Thanks, Yashua. Also, as usual, a thank you to my team, Dan Fury of Extension Audio for being my sound guy. Thanks, Dan. Michael Diamond for letting us use his original music. Thank you, Uncle Michael. And also Skip Barnhart and Lee Turner for sending me sounds that help me build the soundscape at the top and bottom of each episode. As you know, images that we talk about on each episode are over on the website, platemarkpodcast.com. Each episode has its own page, and the images that we talk about within are sitting there for you to refer to as you listen. Not while you drive, though. Please don't do that. But as you're watching the conversation on YouTube, the images will pop up as we're talking about them, so that's handy as well. All right, well, I guess the last thing to say is that I appreciate you guys for sticking with me through this whole thing, and I really appreciate you listening and hopefully getting a lot out of these episodes. Let me know what you think, because, it's like yelling in the wind, as I say all the time. Anyway, we'll see you next time.